All right, well, we are bringing you the latest on the looting and protests going on around the country, but do be reminded that the Constitutional Court rescission application by Jacob Zuma's legal team is currently underway in Johannesburg, and it is streaming live on enca.com, so you can dip in and out of that if you're interested in those legal arguments. But the allegedly pro-Zuma protests continuing this morning with mass looting and destruction of property, with fears of violence spreading to other provinces. And what does this mean for the stability of our country? Well, to answer this, we're joined now by Gareth Newham of the Institute for Security Studies. Gareth, you've probably seen some of the footage that's been playing out. How worried should we be as a country about these protests? They look to be spreading to other provinces.
Well, I think it shows that we have a large number of people who are desperate, are poor, are suffering on a daily basis. And as we see from the scenes that you were showing earlier, when the opportunity arises to get involved in looting, a lot of people will do that. I think the problem is that it seems that these, especially the arson and the damage to property, the burning of trucks, the setting on fire of shopping centers and factories, that's not about looting. That appears to be a particular modus operandi used by instigators that are trying to cause chaos. And in that chaos, the space gets opened up for people to start looting and criminality to take place. So right now, it's still in very particular places. It's not engulfing most of the country. The police are obviously quite stretched and battling to deal with it as it spreads or as it moves around. And interestingly enough, certainly in the last couple of days, a lot of the kind of key areas where this activity has taken place has been the site of previous instances of arson and looting. So we hope that the police are able to, they will be tracking this through their national and provincial operational centers. And we hope that they'll be able to get on top of this before too long.
Gareth, the police are completely outnumbered here, and they've probably been asked to practice restraint as they were at Nkandla to an extent. How important do you think it is that the military get involved, because they don't have crowd control training in many instances, and then you get civilian casualties?
Well, before the military are enabled to get involved, they should have had some kind of crowd control training. But as you point out, this is not their primary function, and they're not necessarily always equipped for that. So the police will be in the best position to determine whether they need additional support. And the military support mostly would be to secure areas. In other words, a presence to stop people from looting so that the police can get involved in other kinds of operations. As you say, they will be expected to exercise restraint. The police will not be just shooting people. And there are various tactics to deal with this. You'll probably find in the coming days, certain areas will be raided to recover the stolen goods, and further arrests will be made. I think the key issue really for the police now and their intelligence capacity is to identify the instigators, those that are moving around in different parts of the country and deliberately setting buildings and vehicles on fire in order to create the space for the widespread looting that we're seeing. They need to really manage to get on top of those individuals, because that is probably the source of a lot of this.
Gareth, the protest initially started in the name of freeing Jacob Zuma from prison, but they've slowly, when you're looking at the progress over the weekend, they elevated fairly quickly to other parts of the country, not just KZN, and now there just seems to be opportunistic looting. How much of this is really about Jacob Zuma?
Well, as you say, I think it started out about that, and I don't think it was really ever seen as a legitimate protest. We never saw spontaneous groups of people carrying placards, applying to march. We haven't really seen that. What we've seen is very quickly arson attacks, blockades of roads, destruction of property, and then criminality in the wake of that. So I don't think it was ever really a legitimate protest. Jacob Zuma is imprisonment after a very considered Constitutional Court judgment and having ample opportunity to engage with that. There may be people who feel that he's unfairly treated, but we're not seeing this as a spontaneous uprising by disaffected people who are, as you say, acting in the interests of freeing Jacob Zuma. Of course, the networks around him that are very well resourced and have been engaged in xenophobic attacks on infrastructure projects in the past. Some taxi associations are probably part of this, but this is not a popular uprising in any sense of the word.
Is this anarchy? Would that be a correct term to use in this instance? And when did you, to your memory, last see visuals or footage of such violent protests in so many parts of the country?
Well, where you see shopping centers being burnt, large numbers of people looting factories and shops, trucks on the highway set on fire, that could be classified as anarchy in those areas, because at that point in time, the rule of law is broken down, the police are not in control, and it will take them some time to stabilize those areas. But yeah, we haven't seen something like this in some time. I think the last time we see kind of politically inspired destruction of property was in 2015 in the city of Tshwane, when there was internal factions fighting for control in the ANC, and that was the start of the root cause of a lot of destruction of property, but that was confined to Tshwane. The last time we saw sort of quite widespread attacks across the country had really been related to xenophobic attacks. So again, in early 2015, starting KwaZulu-Natal, moving into Gauteng. In 2013, we saw that again, and probably the worst incident was 2008. But mostly that was loose networks of people who were using dissatisfaction with current situation to blame foreign nationals, and then directing violence in particular areas in order to gain leverage and control for their own largely business interests. Yeah, so this is something quite unusual. We haven't seen this level of widespread violence because of a political outcome in some time.
Thank you, Gareth Newham of the Institute for Security Studies. We'll be back after the break.